on this episode of the Mad Rush podcast.
It's a combination of things, to be honest with you. You need a community of people that are on a similar journey, similar trajectory, so that when you lose any type of motivation, or you lose energy, or you lose will, that you have someone that can pick you up. But then you also have to be on the right journey from just like a match quality standpoint. Do your skills, do your abilities, do your interests, does the environment line up to where you can actually realistically do this thing? Sometimes people can be influenced to go in places that they're not really equipped to go. And so you have to really look within yourself and figure out, is this the thing that I'm operating in my giftedness? The journey is going to come with challenges. And so you want to be in flow with the right people so that you can overcome whatever challenges come your way.
Welcome to the Mad Rush podcast. I'm Trisha Addix, the original sorority rush consultant. While the stories I have to share are nothing short of astonishing, this podcast goes beyond the wild client tales and sorority life. I'll be engaging with fascinating guests from both within and outside the Greek world, uncovering the surprising connections that bind us all together. Join me for a journey that's as entertaining as it is enlightening. Welcome to Mad Rush. So today it is my honor to have my friend and inspiration, Mohamed Massaquoi, join me on Mad Rush. Mohamed is the Managing Principal of VESSOL and an organizational psychologist. He was a Georgia Bulldog, Go Dogs, and overall team captain of the 2008 Bulldogs, first team All-SEC and academic All-SEC member, and he went on to play 5 seasons in the NFL. And I have a quick little story about him, which I did not know until after I met him and my husband told me this. So our son, Michael, his best friend when he was little, starting at age 3, was an Auburn fan. So both my husband and I went to Georgia, but Michael decided he was going to be an Auburn fan. Well, Auburn was playing Georgia and Mohamed was playing, and my husband said, I'm not taking you to the Auburn, Georgia game unless you wear Georgia colors. And he thought about it and he was like, all right, the only way I will wear Georgia colors is if I wear Massaquoi's jersey. So I was like, okay, I don't know who this guy is, but it's been a story in our family. That was the only way we could get our Auburn fan, who ended up coaching football at the University of Georgia, but that's the only way we could get him to wear Georgia colors. So it's an honor to have you here. And it's so cool that that name has been in our family for a very long time. Thank you so much for being here.
Such a pleasure, such a pleasure. You're such an awesome soul. So it is truly an honor to be here with you.
Thank you. That's very nice of you. So if you've listened to this podcast, you know I am all about connections. And I have said this thing about this magic sidewalk story, and I still haven't figured out a way to say it on an audio podcast. But after the magic sidewalk story, I was walking down this same sidewalk, and I met Mohamed in a way that really reinforces the power of connections, which is what I talk about all the time on this podcast. So originally, when I was in the Wall Street Journal, this guy named Paul Ollinger reached out to me to be on his podcast. And I didn't know Paul, and I went on his podcast. It was one of my favorite things I've ever done as far as media, and just really connected with him and kept in touch with Paul. And I call him my spiritual guide, because when I need advice for pretty much anything, I text Paul. But it had been a while since I was in touch with him. And when I was thinking about starting this podcast, I was walking up the sidewalk and I stopped and I was like, I'm going to text Paul right now and say, can we set up a time to meet to talk about me starting a podcast? Because I knew he had done it successfully. I hit send. I look up and Paul is standing there with Mohamed. And I didn't know it was Mohamed at the time, but I was like, I'd never seen Paul in the wild before. This was at Chastain Park in Atlanta. And I was like, whoa. And I walked up to him and he said, that's really weird. I was just talking to this guy about you. He was talking to Muhammad about me. And anyway, super crazy connection. Met him, Muhammad, obviously that day, and we've been friends ever since. He is just, I was telling a friend of mine today, he was going to be on my podcast, and she's like, he is such a light. And you're such a light. He's so inspiring and kind and supportive. And so, anyway, again, I digress. I'm just so grateful he's here. So, one of the things I teach my clients about is the value of being resilient in rush, and which is something they can carry forward for the rest of their lives. So, I know you guys listening will enjoy hearing Mo's story, and I know it will be as inspiring to you as it is to me. So, I would love for you to talk to us about how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, I remember that walk, and I think Paul is everyone's light and just wisdom and friend and all things good. I guess the arc of my story is, kid from Charlotte, North Carolina, a child of immigrants. Took to sports as a kid, grew up very humbly. Sports, I never imagined it'd take me where it's taken me. Got a chance to play at the University of Georgia. That led to the NFL, kept getting injured in the NFL, unfortunately. Transitioned into finance at Morgan Stanley, thought life was normal. Then I had this crazy ATV accident where I ended up losing my left hand, which just really caused me to stop and pause and just reevaluate. All right, what is life now that I've had to go through this crazy change, and what am I going to do with it? So I went back to school a couple times, got into this world of organizational psychology, just love the side of everybody's going to have to go through change. How do you grow through it? How do you still perform through it? How do you create desired outcomes regardless of the circumstance or situation? And this world feels like sport to me, where you're helping organizations, you're helping people troubleshoot to become the best version of themselves on the other side. And so I'm honored I get a chance to meet people like you. I'm honored I get a chance to have people like Paul in my life. Every day is a blessing, I'd say.
So you mentioned one thing that I talk about connections. We're both from Charlotte, and I remember I had forgotten that. And then when we first met, I was like, wait, he's from Charlotte. We're so meant to be friends. Well, so you were at Morgan Stanley and you had this accident, and how did that change the trajectory of where you are now? I mean, I know it was a journey and it is a journey, but how did you get to that point?
I studied psychology in undergrad. And so I've always been fascinated with people. As a kid of immigrants, I think one of the things that you sit in two worlds where my family's Liberian. And so culturally, I grew up one way, but then I'm raised in America. And so you have this collision of these two cultures. And everyone has this dynamic multi intersectionality about them. And so that's the thing that I've just been fascinated with, just how people come into the world, how they become who they are, what are they going to become at the highest levels. And so when I was at Georgia, that's what I studied. When you add the sports component of just performance and competition and always going for the win, those two things have kind of made me. And when I retired from sports, I didn't really know what to do with that. And the safe thing was to just, transition into the professional world of going to Morgan Stanley. And when my accident happened, I started to revisit, okay, what are the things that I'm actually trying to do on this journey? But I didn't know what it was.
You mean the journey of life and
the journey of life.
Okay, gotcha.
Me having played in the NFL, that was my first real job, and I wanted work to feel like that, with the same type of passion and the same type of joy and fast pace, all that good stuff. And so post-accident, I'm in a conversation with a guy named Stephen DeFrancis over at Cortland, and we're just talking about life, and I'm telling him some of the things that I'm trying to get done. He's like, you should meet these people right here who are organizational psychologists. And I was like, what is that?
I said that's what you were, and I was like, I'm going to need a little clarification on that. So,
and he connects me to a guy named Keith Eigel, a lady named Christian Waldron. I get a chance to meet a lady named Becky Winkler. and they're organizational psychologists. And it's essentially the human side of a business. Like when people are at work, how do you help them stay motivated? How do you help them perform? How do you basically remove all barriers to someone having a quality work experience that leads to productivity? And the athlete in me just kind of lit up because that's what we kind of care about in sports. And I would have never known that world existed, even being so close to it. And once I found that out, I was like, you know what? I want to shift gears and go pursue this.
And so did you go back? You said you went back to school and got a couple, or did you go back to school for organizational psychology?
Yeah, so the kind of twice. The first time I went, Harvard has this like executive MBA program. I did that. I just wasn't as confident in just business as I wanted to be, so I wanted to understand the language a lot more. And then went back to UGA and got a master's in industrial organizational psychology. And so you start looking at the two worlds of like what are the numbers say, and then what do the people say, and how do you merge those two things together to hopefully create a better result for everyone.
So how do you implement this? I mean, I know I actually just a friend of mine was said that you just spoke to his organization, and so I know you do speeches. But do you work with? So are there different levels? Like, or could you go into the companies, or do you just do motivational speaking, or not just? But do you do both of those things?
Yeah, so haven't had I guess, a story that people recognize and can be used as motivation. I do a ton of speaking. When companies are going through change, they'll bring a person like me in and say, how do we talk to our people to get their minds positioned to go through this change or have a growth mindset? And I think what's appealing is having an athlete that understands performance, having someone that's been through a traumatic situation that's had to be resilient, and then understanding leadership just from an org psych standpoint, just using all those experiences to be able to motivate people and give nuggets of what can become, what are the possibilities. And everyone uses organizational psychology a lot different. But for me, I really focus on how do you train individuals? Because if you can train someone to become how to work better in teams, how to have situational awareness, how to have strategy alignment and prioritization, you can really help them execute on some of the things that are thorny. But what a speech does is it really pierces at the start of this change and growth from an emotional standpoint. Because if people aren't positioned emotionally, even if they have the technical capabilities, they're not going to make progress and move forward. There's going to be resistance. But if you can break that wall down, whatever comes after that, people are a lot open to, and they're usually able to adapt or execute once the emotional side is taken care of.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, is there like a so I see a lot of correlations between what I do, not at all comparing my level of success with yours, but I see a lot of correlations with helping people achieve what they want to achieve by helping them block out the noise. Do you see like is there an optimal time for someone to start this or to start this journey of discovery or to listen to you, or is there do you have to be in the corporate world, or is there like a time? I know I'm not really making much sense, but is there a time? So I work with primarily high school seniors and college age people, but I see that they're really ready to hear this kind of stuff at that age. Is there a time that you think that is a prime time for people to listen to your message?
I think it's really a life thing, to be honest with you. It's more of you operate in the sorority world. I may operate, more in like the employee business leader world. But fundamentally, we're kind of doing the same thing. People have things that they're trying to accomplish, and how do you give them the tools to accomplish that in the most simple way so that they can actually execute on it is primarily what I'm trying to do. All the technical stuff that's happening in the background, you can't present that to someone because you're going to overwhelm them, or they just don't care in the language. And so a lot of what I'm doing once again is how do you get to the emotional side and say things and create language that everyone somewhat understands objectively, and then how can you curate whatever is at your disposal to repurpose it in a way that people can utilize. And majority of the work that I do is helping strip out the noise of this is already happening good, but it's being muddied up with these other 10 things. So how do we get these 10 things off of our plate to focus on the things that actually is going to allow us to move forward and progress? And that could be anything. It could be um, uh, a traumatic situation is losing a hand. It could be scared to move forward because you don't want to adopt this new methodology. It could be leaders that they don't function well together because they don't understand how teams function. It could be a number of things, but they're all solvable. And so, much like you, I'm trying to figure out what is this roadblock that prevents a person from accomplishing what they want and framing it in such a simple way that they are able to take action on it.
Yeah, I love this simple because there's so much, like I say, noise. There's so much that if you start thinking about that stuff, it becomes a barrier. And really, you just need to focus in my world, and sounds like yours too, focus on the task at hand and how do you block out that noise and in order to reach your goals. And I do not have a degree in organizational psychology or any kind of psychology, but that's kind of that becomes something that we do way more than we're qualified to do, to try to help them block out our clients, block out the noise and realize that all the external stuff you can't control. So what you can control is what you do and how you act and how you are presenting yourself in a certain situation. So yeah, I see a lot of correlations with that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So when did you start playing football? I'm not trying to change the subject. I'm trying to figure out how you.
I was 7.5, 8, somewhere in there.
Did you know that, did you have a goal? Did you know that that's what you wanted to do? Or, your first iteration of yourself?
And no, and it's changed so much now what youth sports has become. When I played, it was really an extended chance to play outside with your friends. Like everyone from the neighborhood played on the same team, and then you played people from across town. And it was just the camaraderie of being around people you loved and just the joy of running around as a kid. And so we played all sports and just loved to play. And as we got a little older, you kind of dream of it, or you are running around and you're simulating things that you see on TV, the 3, 2, 1, and you're shooting it in the trash can, or you're counting down and you want to do the Hail Mary on the asphalt in the parking lot. But it was just a joy. And a lot of it is what we talked about to start this conversation, the connection with your teammates, the connection with your coaches, the connection to other athletes was the driving factor. And even if you talk to a lot of pros, the thing that they miss the most is the locker room. It's the connection with their teammate. You may miss the thrill of well, no one misses the thrill of getting hurt. No one misses the thrill of, all the stuff you have to put your body through. But it's those moments that you can be with your team that help you become resilient, that help you work harder, that help you unify across a goal. And that was the main reason of playing sports. I'd say majority of my friendships prior to, age 30 all came from sports.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That's super cool. So you bring up the word joy a lot. And I look at you and I see, just from knowing you, what a joyful person you are. So you felt that joy playing football, and it was or playing sports in general. It was a different time then, right? And then now, so you say that professional athletes miss that. Is that camaraderie? Is that when it becomes professional, it becomes a job? Does that go away, that camaraderie?
Once you're retired.
Oh, okay.
Right now, there's still tons of camaraderie. I can meet an athlete from any sport, and there's just a certain bond, male or female. Even if they went to an opposing school, we still understand that we've done similar things. And so we bond as if we've known each other. There's people that I only know them maybe through social or limited interaction, and we actually meet for the first time. And it's as if we've played together since we were 12. And so it's just a very unique experience of that camaraderie that you have across all sports, across all demographics. It's the great equalizer, unifier.
I think that's so cool. And I think that is again, because my world seems to be there seems to be so many similarities. I met a bunch of people this past weekend and I was out, and the first question that everybody was asking was, what sorority were you in? Because it kind of gives, or were you in the Greek system? And it kind of gives you a commonality. And so then you instantly have some sort of basis for connection, which is, I think that's really cool. And I think that also makes the point that it doesn't have to be a sorority. I get a lot of, not heat, but a lot of people are like, the Greek system, blah, 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 it's flawed or whatever. And, you shouldn't have to try to be in the Greek system if you take it or leave it. But I think that it's really, like we said, all about the connections and the camaraderie. And that can come at any point in your life. I brought up a couple weeks ago on this podcast about this woman who, she's older now and she's wanting to reinstate her, which I think she did. I know she did that, which is amazing. But just to have that connection when she meets someone in this time of her life, she's reinstated in her sorority. So she can say, this is what, I was in a sorority and I'm an active member, or I guess it's active alumni. But anyway, I just think that's super cool that you were able to do that with sports. And when did you know that, did you choose Georgia or did you have other options? I'm assuming you did, but how did you choose? When did you know Georgia was the place for you?
Yeah, so I'll answer that question, and I'll go back to something. So I think that you are scratching at. We all want to belong. That lady wants to belong.
Right.
As an athlete, you want to belong to a team, whether you're the starter or walk on, you're the star player or you're a practice squad person. You all want to have that same shield that you belong to, or people that have done similar things to become a part of that. I think that's why groups that are set up the right way, that allow people to kind of earn their way into it's meaningful. That's why athletes connect, because that you've kind of paid a price to be a part of that group, regardless of what you look like, regardless of how you come into the world. And so I think at the if you put a pin in it, but the belonging is what we're all trying to have. As it related to getting to Georgia, I got a chance to go to a really incredible high school coached by.
What high school was that? Did you go to Independence?
I went to Independence.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so that was coached by Tommy Knotts. We ended up winning 109 games in a row, 7 straight championships. And that brought a lot of attention to the program. And under his leadership, he developed a lot of us into where we had options to go to college. And so I was fortunate to be able to choose Georgia. A guy by the name of Mike Bobo decided to ride up to Charlotte and say, hey, I think if you come to Georgia, we can make a lot of good things happen. And that turned out to be the case. And I haven't looked back since.
So is that the same Bobo that's the offensive coordinator now?
That is the same Bobo that's the offensive coordinator.
I was like, there can't be two Bobos. That's super cool. No, so he's been doing this. Didn't he leave Georgia at one point?
He left and then he found his way back home.
Yeah.
And so I think I met Bobo in 2003.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we're 20 years in. And he's a major reason why a lot of people from North Carolina have made their way to UGA, from the Gurleys, the Keith Marshalls, the Danner Ellerbys, the Jordan Davises. He's had a hand on bringing a lot of people back to UGA.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, I love watching him on Saturdays. And just so if you're listening, this sweet friend of mine, Mo, I got so excited watching the game. I don't know, it was a couple weeks ago, and I texted him and you were on the field and you responded. I was like, oh my God, he does not need me texting him about the game. And then he was so nice. He responded. I was like, okay, this is a good guy, because my sons won't even respond to me when they're watching football and they're not on the field. So that's super cool. And so Georgia, you were an all SEC academic. So that was clearly very important to you. So you knew that was a big portion of what you were doing in college versus just the sports.
It's funny. My mom had no concept of scholarships or professional sports. She's coming from a very small country in Western Africa. And so this whole idea that you're going to be an athlete was just foreign. and so education was pushed extremely hard. And so there's a nerdy side under the helmet, and you it. But I think once you lock into the thing that you're interested in, it just becomes fascinating. And so studying psychology and kind of get into the root of all that was very fascinating to me. It's tough when you have to balance almost
Yeah.
working a 40-hour work week and you're playing Florida or Alabama and you got a test, but you also have to figure out which which is going to give. So, but you make do and you figured it out.
Well, yeah, you clearly did. That's a thing. That's a balance that I see. I actually talked to someone just yesterday. She is, I think she's at Alabama, and she did not have a successful rush, and her roommate did. And I was like, well, why don't you talk to your roommate and have your roommate make some introductions or whatever? And she said she is so struggling trying to figure out how to do all these meetings and the social stuff and the study hours, and all that was study hours were helping her, but the structured study hours, she's like, she can't even find this balance yet. So she's certainly not going to be helping me. I think that balance is really hard for anyone, and especially someone who is practicing as much as I know you did. And it's the amount of hours, having had a son who coached at Georgia, the amount of hours that he spent on the game before the game. I mean, the week of the game, I was shocked that he could study at all. And I can't even imagine playing. That just, I don't know how you did that. I really don't. Yeah, that's very impressive. So, for someone finding that balance or looking for that balance in college and beyond, what kind of advice do you have for that? Because you clearly did it. I don't know if you compartmentalize stuff or how did you do that?
It's a combination of things, to be honest with you. You need a community of people that are on a similar journey, similar trajectory, so that when you lose any type of motivation or you lose energy or you lose will, that you have someone that can pick you up. If you're on this journey by yourself, you're really going to struggle. But I don't think we're equipped to carry all of the load by ourselves. And so I've had incredible people that have supported me, that have uplifted me, that have helped me, that have given me insight, that have been on the journey with me. But then you also have to be on the right journey from just like a match quality
Oh,
standpoint.
wow.
Do
Yeah.
your skills, do your abilities, do your interests, does the environment line up to where you can actually realistically do this thing? If I were to pursue singing or accounting, I'd struggle just because those aren't my skill sets or my giftedness. And sometimes people can be influenced to go in places that they're not really equipped to go. And so you have to really look within yourself and figure out, is this the thing that I'm operating in my giftedness? And do I have the resources around me, people, time, talent, whatever's needed to then go do the thing that I care about? Because regardless if you're in flow or not in flow, the journey is going to come with challenges. And so you want to be in flow with the right people so that you can overcome whatever challenges come your way.
Wow, that is great advice. I mean, everything you're saying is resonating with me, but that is such an important point that he's making. It's just it's got to be it's got to be you, because you can't fake it. You can't be this elite athlete and have good grades and do all the things you want to do if that's not your passion and that's not where your gifts lie. If you're pushing something that is not what you're meant to do, I feel like that is a going to be a recipe for not succeeding, for sure. Definitely. And I think that you doing that from such an early age in college and then beyond has really led you to have an understanding of people in all parts of their journey, and the fact that your journey has changed so much, or changed and evolved so much, has given you this unique understanding that is part of your gift. I think it's a huge part of your gift. That's just my opinion.
One of the cool things, I guess it's multi-layered. Being immigrant, family being immigrant, you just see the world slightly differently. everyone has a unique story. Everyone comes to the world differently. Everyone, I think, fundamentally is trying to do their best and put good in the world for the most part. But then when you play on teams and you got people from all different walks of life and they're all united, you start to see this black guy from the inner city is much like this white guy. This white guy from the country is much like this guy. This tall guy is much like this short guy. And it's just this weird um, gumbo of just mixing all these ingredients that just seem to work. The Ben Jones, I talk about him often. One of my favorite people. He's white guy, country guy from Alabama. He just used to talk about it took him a mile to get to his driveway. I'm an inner city kid, so I can't even relate. And he's like, "Bro, you got to come do this with me and hunt and do all that stuff." I'm like, "Ben, what are you talking about?" But at the core of who he is as a person is just one of the most sweet human beings ever. You get another guy that he used to make queso dip, the most random time of day, and he's playing his guitar, and we're all in there. We're just having a good time, and on nothing matters outside of just the love and joy of doing life together. And so I come into life with the assumption that more people are good than they are bad, and they're just trying to figure out how to become a better version of themselves. And if you can be a small part of that, why not? And that's just the love and joy of being on this journey.
Well, and that certainly is true for you and me. I mean, I met you and I'm a 56-year-old sorority rush consultant. And I'm almost 57. Let's not talk about that. But but I felt this immediate connection with you. And it is because I could tell that you, and I don't know what you and Paul were saying about me before I walked up or what Paul was saying about me, but I just have this instant connection. And that is why I do what I do. I'm trying to help people find these connections because I think it's so important. And I think it's so crazy that like I had this party celebrating my podcast and I look out and it's all my friends and family, the ones that can make it. And I'm looking out and everybody looks kind of the same. And then there's you who's there supporting me on a weeknight that, and you have a young kid. And my point is I feel like that joy and love and willingness to be open to friendships and connections from all different ways is what makes you you. And it's a really unique thing about you. And I also kind of think it's a unique thing about me, just in general, because that's how I live. That's what I want. That's all I want. And that's why I have this business. And that's all I want is for people to feel that. And I feel like it's inherent to you. And I think it's a really beautiful thing about you. And I don't think you would need to be, or I know you wouldn't need to be in a locker room to have that because we found it on a sidewalk at Chastain Park. And if I had walked by you and I didn't know Paul, I would not probably have thought, okay, he's going to be my friend. But I will say to y'all listening, he is an elite athlete, but he would not walk in the rain with me. We had plans to meet up, and I walk every day, and I'm sure I know he exercises every day or whatever. But I was like, all right, can we just walk in the rain? He was like, no, we're going to have coffee. I was like,
listen, I've been in the elements for 20 plus years.
Oh, that's true. Okay. How about me?
The cold and the rain and the heat. At this point in life, I'm striving for comfort.
Okay, that's totally fair. Here I am. Yeah. I've only been walking in the rain for like a year. So listen to me trying to be like, well, he wouldn't even walk in the rain with me. You're like, hello.
I have a daughter that the tough guy in me is gone.
Yeah.
So, like she decides to start dating.
Oh yeah. Then it's coming back. I remember when my kids were playing football and I would just mama bear in me and it would be 90 million degrees and I would just be so mad. I'm like, they have pads on. What are they doing? Why are they making them practice? And my kids would just roll their eyes. They're like, yeah, you don't get it. So yeah, that I take back that entire story about saying he wouldn't walk in the rain with me
Uh-oh.
because yeah, he's got a few more years
Yeah.
of discomfort in his wheelhouse. So fine, fine. We'll have coffee.
Coffee.
I won't make you uncomfortable ever again in the rain. But yes, I think the core of it, and I think that is the reason that you're so successful is, and you don't again need my take on that either, but is because of the human that you are, and you're looking and you connect so well. So I feel like if people are listening to you, they want to figure out a way to be more like you. Like I do. I think it's amazing.
I mean, I think we're all just trying to be the best that we can. And I'm inspired by people and just anyone that's doing the best that they can with their God-given abilities inspires me. I remember getting asked one time, I was actually in class and someone was like, what type of friends do you like being around? And it was the first time I like, really got a question like that
That's a rush
because
question, just so you know. Like every sorority rush, there's somebody's asked that question. So I would love to.
really,
Yeah, oh yeah, that's a thing. What are you looking for in a friend? That's a big
it's
sorority rush question.
it's good people because I guess my celebrity type friends, their job is probably the last thing that we talk about, whether they're athletes or entertainers or entrepreneurs, whatever recognizable name. And we're still getting to the core of the human element of how is your family, how's your kids? We're talking about fantasy sports, which I'm getting drilled in right now. Uh, and
I'm not.
yeah, I'm losing. So please send me some tips. Uh, it's the core of that, and so the status of a person is the last thing. I don't need any more famous friends or successful friends. I just want to be around good people and people that have great values, people that are trying to do good in the world. And if we're starting from that place, we can find a lot of other things that we have in common. But the person that's, name dropping or just trying to be whatever, there's really not a lot of interest in those because those are superficial. And I think those fade extremely fast. In majority of the people that I found that operate at the level of they're successful usually have qualities that lend itself to just being a good human first. And so I just rather be in those environments, whether a person is deemed successful or not. If they have certain positive qualities, we can have a great time together.
I agree. And that is what it's all about. And that's what it's all about for all of this. I mean, this is not a dress rehearsal. We get to do this once. And so we need to be with the people that inspire us and that are kind and all of the good things. And again, yeah, it doesn't matter what your bank account looks like. It doesn't matter if you're famous or whatever. It's all about the type of people, and I feel like you're really good at seeing that in people, and that is probably what makes you so connectable when you're working with companies as well. I would imagine because you're going to find the good in the how their team can be more productive because you can see what the gifts are in others, and I definitely see that in you.
Yeah, it's kind of cool to just like you said, there's things that people take for granted or there's things that go unnoticed. And if you can find and highlight those and say, hey, this isn't as bad or as complicated as you think because this person has a piece of the pie, that person has a piece of the pie, that person has a piece of the pie. But you have to bring them together. And if you do that, everybody wins. And from a guy that's been on teams all my life, it's you are a part of a much larger entity. And so if you do your part, it gives the entity a much greater chance of success. But when the entity has success, you in turn have success. I've still benefit off of going to the University of Georgia. As the football team does better, I'm in conversations with people as UGA rises in academic rankings. There's more things that are attached to it. There's all these benefits by association of just being a part of a team. And I think that's amazing if people can kind of understand that and work more collectively with people that they see on a day-to-day basis. And it's the ability to create something greater than yourself, which I think we all want, or hopefully.
Yeah. I think you're right. Yeah, and that is super cool. That again goes back to the whole Greek life thing. You know, it's a connection later on too, that where you can find out, you can meet people that were involved in it, and then took that and maybe start a company or whatever it is. It's that connection and that being part of a bigger something than yourself. And I think
1000%.
I think that's super cool to hear. And I don't even really need to ask you this because you've given such good advice, but it's kind of a thing on this. So, and you've already given it, so we can just regurgitate it if you want. So Bama Rush Talk popularized hashtag OOTD outfit of the day. For Mad Rush, I'm repurposing it into observation of the day. So what is Mo's hashtag observation of the day? It could be anything.
Hashtag observation of the day.
It can be that your daughter gets tired after being at museums all day. It could be anything.
You know what I think? I think what I've observed is that there are so many people that are having an impact in the areas that they care about. So one should just do what their God-given abilities are and be
That's
comfortable
amazing.
with that. And not try to become something that you aren't. Just be happy with what you are and look around to see who else is doing that, and take clues from how they did it and add it to your own toolkit and become the thing that is uniquely you. Is probably, I don't know if that's an observation.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And that's great. And it so resonates, and it is really, it's what I believe. If you take what you're meant to do, then you're going to find the love, you're going to find the connections. And I think that's amazing. So that's a great observation. Yeah. Much better than your daughter gets tired after a day at the museum. He just went on vacation. So that's why I said that.
Yeah. So, like even like when I was fascinated in hearing your story, because I'm like, wait, what is going on? How'd you find this? I didn't know this was a thing. And to see the love and the joy that you have of doing this, I would have never known this existed, but you're living proof that you can find this thing that you're uniquely qualified to do and you're passionate about. And it doesn't feel like work, but it's cool and it's rewarding and it's all the things that one would want to have in a meaningful life.
Exactly. And that is what happened. I mean, I've had a lot of iterations of my life. And this was an aha moment. And I was like, wait, this is how I can take my love for teenagers and the desire to help people belong. And this is what it led to. And it just gives me so much joy every single day. I mean, yeah, there's pain in the ass parts of it too, but it gives me so much joy to see people making the connections, and those connections are super easy for you. But I feel like, and for me, but I feel like it's not easy for everybody, and helping them have the tools to do that is my gift. And I'm grateful to be able to do it every day. And I'm grateful for people like you who are on this journey with me. I really am. And if I cannot stress it enough for you guys listening, he's the man. I mean, Mo is the man, not because he's this crazy good football player, but just the person that he is. And if I had a company, I would want him to speak every single time we had a team meeting. So I know he's available for speaking engagements and all the things that Vessel does. How can listeners find you?
LinkedIn is probably the easiest way. So search me. I think you'll either get me or you get my dad. My dad will forward the message to me.
Does he have the same name as you?
He does.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a Liberian thing or just a family thing?
Maybe just a family thing.
Gotcha.
But if you ask him, he's way cooler. He's way more athletic. He's way more everything. So,
Yeah, there
uh,
you go.
uh, but yeah, LinkedIn and happy to connect with all the wonderful people that come to listen to you all the time.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. Your wealth of wisdom and kindness. And I really, really, really appreciate it.
For sure, we'll do our walk again when it's beautiful
Yeah,
outside.
exactly. Now it's a little cold. I still can't believe you're like, yeah, I have.
we we
You're like,
got
I played football in the snow and the rain, and you're giving me crap because I won't walk, 3 miles with you in the
you're
rain.
you're you're tougher than me now. So we got until it drops about to 50, and then 50. That's when I start to tap out the game.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Okay, yeah. I'm so regretting that, but that's pretty funny. All right. Well, thank you for being here, and thank you for being a damn good dog, and thank you for your time and your wisdom today.
Anytime. We'll see each other soon.
Yes. Welcome to Time Out with Trisha. Because can you really give advice if you don't speak about yourself in the third person? I don't think so. This is exactly how I speak to my clients: the good, the bad, and the ugly. So listen to me. I know what I'm talking about. Now let's get into it. So there is a lot of controversy over videos as introduction versus round one in person. So what I'm talking about is the summer before you go through rush, you are sending in a video. P&Ms are sending in videos, and that is how round one cuts or rankings are made, versus it used to be that you would go into sorority houses for a little 10-minute round where you would meet people in person. I, for one, think that this is a much better way of doing it. Round one used to be so chaotic, you wouldn't really get a chance to meet the people anyway or talk to them for very long. And it was hot and noisy and loud. So you can control what they see with these videos, which means you need to do them intentionally. You need to really think about what you're doing and know that this is how they're going to make their rankings along with your resume. So think about what you're going to say, practice it, and that way you have control over what they see. So for example, if you are asked, you're answering prompts for these videos. If you are asked, for instance, like what you value in a friend, an answer that's probably given a lot is loyalty. So you would say, I value friends that are loyal and who are always going to be in your corner. Those are great answers, but think about something that might set you apart that's authentically you. For instance, how about if you really value lightheartedness and a sense of humor in your friends? That's going to set you apart. It doesn't mean that you don't value loyalty, but it's going to set you apart and be a little refreshing for the people who are watching the video. So think about, before you do your video, what really authentically you value, if that's one of the prompts, or even if it's not, something that sets you apart in a way that is authentic to you. Do the videos in front of a blank background that's not distracting, and don't have fans going that you can see, overhead fans, and make sure that you're wearing a shirt with straps or sleeves so you don't look naked. If you don't wear a lot of makeup, don't put on a lot of makeup for your video. Vice versa. If you do wear a lot of makeup, just make sure it looks good. And that's it for Time Out with Trisha. We'll see you on another episode of the Mad Rush Podcast. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Mad Rush Podcast. If you are enjoying this podcast, please consider leaving us a 5-star review. For additional Rush tips, updates, and more, please follow me on Instagram at Rush with Confidence. If you would like to reach out to us or for more information, please email info@madrushpod.com. This podcast is produced by Collier Landry and Don't Touch My Radio. Copyright Trisha Adams.